Okay, on today's episode of the Pest Control Marketing Domination podcast, we're going to interview Mitch Shipman of Blue Beetle Pest Control out of the Kansas City metro area. This is the first episode in our series of pest control owners that get it right. So hang on a minute and we'll get to the interview with Mitch.
You own a pest control company, and marketing and advertising ain't what it used to be. Just so you know, software and millennials are not the answer. This is the Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast. Our passion is to teach you online and digital marketing without all the technobabble. Oh, it still takes hard work, sales, and a sprinkle of tech. But we'll teach you how to do it in simple terms. Let's do this.
Let's get on with the show.
This is the Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast. And this is your host, Casey Lewis.
All right, everybody, and welcome to the show. And let me set the stage here, tell you what we want to try to accomplish today, and introduce to you a very special guest, something that I'm excited about, something that we've wanted to be doing, and that is to interview and talk to pest control owners out there that we think are really getting it right. And today, that's going to be Blue Beetle Pest Control out of the Kansas City metro area. And we're going to talk to the owner, Mitch Shipman. And I'll give a little background here. So Mitch is the owner. He's the founder of Blue Beetle Pest Control in the Kansas City metro area. He was born in Independence, Missouri, the home of the great Harry Truman, and he has the father of two boys, like myself. He's got two young boys. He loves to travel with his family, plays soccer, and wants to help in his community however he can. And that's a brief intro of Mitch, but I'm also going to add to that a little bit. I think he's being very, very humble there. I work with and interview and audit and talk to pest control companies all day, every day. So I think in that regard, I would consider myself to be relatively intuitive when I see a company that's doing a good job, that's got it right. And when we talk to Blue Beetle Pest Control and we talk to Mitch, he's going to talk about what he's doing right, but I encourage you to go take a look at his website, look at some of his social media. He's really doing an outstanding job. He's not one of our clients. He's just somebody that I saw out there, reached out to, introduced myself to, and I'd like to take a moment before he comes on just to say, you hear me preach a lot about market domination. You hear me talk a lot about the 10 essential steps that you have to follow if you're going to dominate in your local market area. In this particular case, I think Mitch really checks all those boxes. So without any further ado, let me bring in Mitch Shipman from Blue Beetle Pest Control. Let me go ahead and add this. Hi, Mitch.
Hello. Hi, guys.
How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me on.
Yep. So I'm going to take off my headphones. I don't need them any further. And like I was telling you earlier, Mitch, before we got started, I really want this to be about you and your company. I've already introduced you. I've already said what I think about Blue Beetle and what they're doing, and I really mean that sincerely. You're the first guest that we've had in this new series where what we want to do is go talk about the pest control industry, the pest control market, pest control owners, everything that goes around with that. And what I'll do, I think, to help sort of prompt you through this, let me get this right here. I'm going to just let you take off, and I'll bring up a few slides here that will maybe prompt you to tell us a little bit about Blue Beetle, what it is, where did it come from, who are you, where did you come from, why should anybody care or listen to what you have to say, those kinds of things. So anyway, go ahead, Mitch, introduce yourself and take it away.
All right. So you have the most people don't realize, but Blue Beetle was a comic book character, came out in the 50s. He was actually Batman's friend. And Batman took off in popularity, and unfortunately, Blue Beetle did not. He has no superpowers, just like Batman. He just kind of has a special belt and very athletic. And my father bought me the first episode in the '80s there in Independence, and I still have that comic book in the front lobby when you walk into our corporate office in Leawood, Kansas, and it really resonated with me in regards to applying it to the company, because the truth is what we do as pest control providers and technicians and whatnot, and exterminators, is very important. We are truly heroes in our community. However, we're not always the most popular. We're kind of unsung heroes, very much like Blue Beetle, the Blue Beetle character. Doctors and lawyers are maybe Batman, and the exterminators are maybe the Blue Beetle guy. But the truth is, again, we are heroes, and we incorporate that culture within our organization, and we call all of our teammates heroes, especially our technicians. We remind them of how important they are and how they're heroes to the community. So that's how the comic book relays to the community.
That's great. And I think that so often in business in general, that I find it's hard to find some inspiration and hard to find something that really tells a story like that. And then to bring your technicians into it and actually call them heroes and use that reference, that's incredible. And it really, I think, speaks to why I reached out to you. And when in this next, I want to, and one of the things I need to reinforce here. So we're doing an audio podcast, and it's got a video version here. We're going to push that out to channels, and we're also going to put it on the Rhino Pest Control marketing social media channels. I'll give you a copy as well. So when we're, folks, to the audience out there, when we're talking about a few things, you may not be able to see it if you're only listening on audio. And in that first slide, what we had was a picture of the Blue Beetle comic book. And then now what I'm showing is something that even my family, who's in the Kansas City area, told me about. What Mitch has done is painted these houses blue and then created this training academy. And I think that they're well known in the market area he has, and you have to see this picture to truly appreciate it. But anyways, talk to me a little bit about your hero training academy, the blue houses. How did you come up with all this, and what I'd really like you to emphasize, where did you make the decision, or how did you make the decision that the monies that you spent on these kinds of things were well worth it, and we're going to pay off for you at some point and sometime in the future?
Well, I'm still working on that equation. I hope it truly does. I think it will pay off. But I'm a real estate person, and we, advertisers like us and the pest control industry, we spend a lot of money on advertising. So we can go out, and I have billboards around the Kansas City, but we can go out and spend $2,000 a month on a billboard, or you can buy a piece of real estate that's in a high traffic visibility area that the city will allow you to paint it some kind of obnoxious color that goes with your logo, and you can own the billboard. Then on top of that, you can lease out parts of that billboard, so it turns out to be zero mortgage payment and zero utility payment because your tenants are paying it. In this training academy, I have some offices with other companies in there. Of course, they get a discount for being in my big blue building and whatnot, but it works out for everybody. And then a portion of the building we use, the idea for Hero Training Academy. And I got this from other podcasts and other companies. For example, A1 Garage Door out of Phoenix. They have a training facility. So the idea right now, the industry, and what they do is they'll find a person that's happy, hungry, and hardworking, with great character, and they will send him with a technician for a month. And meanwhile, he's possibly making mistakes on Mrs. Smith's house, and instead of wearing the booties, he goes in with no shoes. He's just not trained right, and truly, it's not right to train on your customers. Because a new person, it's not their fault. They're going to make mistakes. She's going to ask him what kind of insect this is, and the new guy's going to say, I have no idea. I mean, it's going to be goofy. So the idea is to create a factory to take that happy, hardworking, and humble person, put him into this factory system where we use it as a fake house. There's a fake leasing office in there, as we do lots of multifamily. There's actually a fake restaurant in there. And we have an insect identification section where they look at little insects and tubes and whatnot. And we'll send them over there for a day or two with a trainer. We'll have, at the end of the training, we'll have a actual actor / person from the office go over there, and they have a script, and they'll act like a mad leasing agent that just throws the keys at them, said figure it out. Or it'll be Mrs. Smith that answers the door, and she has 3 crying kids and doesn't, ask you 1,000 questions and how do you handle it. And really it's a checklist of all these different scenarios, mostly negative. I mean, we have fake drugs on the coffee table. We have a fake gun next to the bed. We have a fake baby's crib with a baby. We have a fake aquarium with fish. How do you deal with all these scenarios appropriately to where the new technician doesn't walk in and freak out or make a mistake? We have fake cameras in there to remind them, hey, when you go into people's home, just understand they're watching you. There's cameras all over people's houses nowadays. So instead of, again, them making mistakes out in the field, we'll let them make mistakes in this training academy that acts as a huge billboard, that acts as a real estate piece of investment. Because the truth is, I own these properties, and 10, 20 years from now, they'll be worth a lot more, instead of me just burning up money on billboards. Right. So that's the idea behind it.
Well, that is fascinating. And we're going to need Mitch to create a friendship and have a couple more podcast episodes, because what you just brought up there is going to be a whole episode by itself. And that's how to leverage real estate to use for your office building, for your training center, make money, and be able to promote yourself all in one. That's just smart. I mean, that's just smart, man. And I will tell you, technicians, and I just did a podcast episode on this, I don't know, a little while back, about technicians, reputation, and reviews, and the importance that they have in the course of building a pest control business, because they are the franchise. I mean, that's who people are seeing. Their attitude, the way they dress, the way they look, the way they smell, everything is so important. And what you just talked about reminds me, when I was a young man, I went to work for the Yellow Pages. You first had to go to St. Louis, Missouri, right down there on 4th and Pine, right by the Arch. And you trained in this academy that AT&T had, and it was 12 weeks under a video camera extensively. And you go through the steps of a sales process and evaluating the customer and how you would respond and what you would do. And you would not be able to transition to the next step until you had mastered each first step. And I will tell you, man, in those days, 50 to 60% of the people just failed right there. They couldn't make it. Mm-hmm. But what you got was really the better and the best of the best, if you will, people that made it through that and then went out and represented the business in the way they wanted to be represented. And I find that just incredible that as a pest control owner, a local pest control owner, you've been able to have the smarts and the panache, if you will, to be able to use some real estate background to leverage a billboard and a training center and an office suite environment into what you're doing there to make sure you're just not eating and losing money. Because I think what you're talking about here, that I hope our listeners are really catching on to, is you're creating a revenue stream to cover the costs of what you're doing. So I mean, that's just smart. My hats off to you. And then
can I add to that, if you don't mind?
Absolutely, please do. It's your time.
It's also, I mean, if you look at how Google's finding all of us nowadays, it's also the Google mapping, and the radius around that around your location is getting smaller and smaller every day. So if you're beyond 10, if you service beyond 10 miles around your physical location or where you're Google mapped, it's good luck Google finding you. So that's why we have 5 different locations around Kansas City on all different points and frankly high median income locations to really hit home. Like when you type in, we're based in Leawood, Kansas. When you type in pest control near me and you live in Lee Summit, guess what? Our Lee Summit property pulls up right there, and which is 30 minutes from our main locate or corporate headquarters. So there's another benefit to that. And for caveat, I'm here. I've been helped by, well, frankly, you, Casey, and a lot of other pest control business owners around the country. It's my pleasure to help anybody else. If anyone ever wants to email me, it's my pleasure, or come visit. I can learn from you guys too. So come visit, and I'll give you a full tour.
No, I would.
Want some barbecue?
No, I'm in Kansas City quite often. Well, not quite often, at least 2 or 3 times a year.
Great, let's hang out.
And I'll absolutely do that. I'll introduce you to my niece out there, who maybe one of these days she'll be writing content for you. But anyway,
totally.
So you just brought up a couple of things. So I'm gonna pick up on that just because I want to make sure that people understand exactly what you mean and what I see going on that's problematic. So Google Maps, Google Business Profiles, and having multiple profiles in all of the market areas and geographic areas you cover is smart. Again, that's all free leads, free marketing. That shows credibility when you're always at the top of the list in both of organic maps, and then we can talk local service ads another time. But anyway, what you don't want to do, folks, though, and it's funny that Mitch brought this up, because every day we get a call where a Google Business Profile has been suspended because they went down to the UPS store and they grabbed an address and set up a listing and spent all this time getting these reviews and getting things started and posting to it. And all of a sudden they shut it down, and Google's just not going to let it happen. And so what Mitch is talking about is, as that Google Maps and Google Business profile gets a smaller geographic area that Google's giving you credit for. So no matter what you do, your footprint is only going to be here. Then what we want to do is have a lot of little footprints, but you can't cheat at that, because you'll eventually get caught. Google has shut it all down, and it's wasted effort. So you've got to have a legitimate address that you can use and that you can have for a long time and that you can grow. Because there's a lot of sweat equity that goes into building those profiles, and you don't want to do it if it's not legitimate. Anyway, so yeah, you're absolutely right. I just listened. You must listen to these podcasts as well. I just listened to somebody just did an episode, and we're talking extensively about this. And yeah, Google did that, and then they also did away. I don't know if you remember what schema code was. But you used to be able to put schema code on your website pages. And when they showed up in Google local organic search, they'd be about this big, and they'd have 2 or 3 of your 5-star reviews with them. They were great. They were incredible. And of course, they did away with that, much like they did away with good things like Google authorship. So they're always working at. I use it and equate it to my days in managing Yellow Pages. And I can remember when we got to the point to where the heading was full of ads for pest control, so nobody could come in and buy a new one because they were going to be, ad number 47. So what did they do? They just doubled the size of them. So now that guy that had that first half page, he now had to go buy a full page for the same share of the market, pay double the money. But, I guess, and Google, you see Google and social media slowly moving in those directions, where everything's got to be paid for, and we're going to just keep decreasing your size of the pie. So if you want to save and continue to have that large portion of the pie, you just got to find ways to spend more. Anyway, so, and then what am I doing here? So I'll set this up and I'll give it to you. And this is sales. And this is giving your team something to sell. This is promoting and having a value-driven proposition. I don't even know what your Happy Home program is, but I would love to hear about it, because it's something that's extremely important to any pest control company, that they have some packages, some programs, some branded things that they're selling that contain good stuff within that.
So yes, this is our quarterly residential program, and I want to encourage all pest control companies around the country. Like you have to have some type of yearly, annual type program. I would definitely move away from a one-time service. You know that when you evaluate your company, when you if you ever want to sell it or go to value, they don't the people buying it could care less about your one-time services. They want to know what's on subscription, and that's really what it's going to add to your net worth and make your company valuable, and frankly, make you money in the off seasons and everything else. And I made that mistake for many, many years and not really understanding that. I'd sold a lot of one times, and so our one times we do sell them, but they're a small fortune, and it really pushes everyone to the program. So anyway, our Happy Home is a very traditional type of quarterly program. So.
Do you have any monthly and bi-monthly plans as well?
I don't. I try to keep it. I do have packages. I believe in packages. Like you can add on a termite program to the Happy Home. You can add a mosquito program and so on.
Yeah,
Uh, but
I'm sorry.
but I try to keep it somewhat. We have about 7 people answering phones every day. And I want to keep it somewhat simple. I don't want to offer 10,000. I don't want to, this isn't Cheesecake Factory. We have 10,000 different, it's already hard enough to kind of memorize everything and understand everything. So I try to keep it simple as much as possible.
No, I agree with you. At one of our services, we will work with our clients' team of people that are selling. And at one point in time, I had 4,000 sales reps nationwide, inside, outside, key accounts, call centers. And the single most important thing was to keep things simple. So everybody was telling the same story. Everybody understood what they could or couldn't do. And then the one thing that we try to promote to our pest control companies to empower people that if they get mixed up, the worst thing to do is not do anything. The best thing to do is just sell them something and we'll figure it out later if you did something wrong. So it's kind of like don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, but we want to empower people, sell stuff. That's what we're about. That's what we're trying to do. And you're exactly right. That monthly recurring revenue, however, bi-monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, we find a lot of our pest control companies, Mitch, what they offer will be dependent on geography as well. So, for example, I'm in Nevada, and a lot of companies go monthly and bi-monthly only because it gets so hot, particularly in the summer, that the chemicals will dissipate quicker than they will in a more moderate environment. And or if you look at Florida or some of the southern states, their pest control is just generally year round. But anyway, yeah, this is, having someone that even considers sales programs, how to sell them, is terrific. Anything else that you want to say about your Happy Home programs, and do you do the same kind of thing for commercial?
Well, we do kind of all the above for commercial. So it's, we do the monthly and the quarterly and bi-month, kind of what the client wants in regards to that. But I probably assume everybody's already on a monthly billing cycle. If anybody can see this picture here, this is a marketing picture off of our website, but you'll notice that I'm strategically not spraying what a homeowner would think would be hardcore pesticide around but you look at a lot of websites and they'll see the operator spraying pesticide all over where their children play, right? So you don't see any of that. You see me being nice and friendly and showing the homeowner lady where we're going to take care of business, and it's not a pesticide filled picture. Then on the other side, it's all about happy. It's all about smile. It's a sweet little program, and it's not something invasive or dangerous or pesticide or whatnot. So I would just think about who's looking at your website, who's looking at your logos and anything about that, just to think about the emotion that it reacts, the subconscious emotion that people might get from it. Be cognitive of that.
Yeah, and you're right. People don't necessarily see this picture, and I hope if you get a chance, check it out on the YouTube channel. We should have this up. Well, by the time I push this out, we should be able to have it out. what you're talking about here, though, I'm going to take it a next step, because one of our frustrations here as a marketing agency, and it baffles my mind. What you don't see, folks, is that this is actually a real picture of Mitch and a lady in front of a real house by a photographer that was done for Blue Beetle. He's wearing his Blue Beetle outfit with his logo on his shirt. What it's not is a Shutterstock image with some weird European guy wearing blue coveralls, and that you can cleanly see it's not an American house. And I will say to you, just as somebody, again, there's no vested interest here. In almost any market, you could literally go on Craigslist and find some local photographer that's struggling, that'll come out and take shots of you and technicians for a day for $200-300, give you all of them. You can drop them into a Google Drive folder. And if you have any marketing company or any individual in house that's helping you with social media, posting, site pages, you can optimize these images. You can put them all over your site, and they make a world of difference. And to Mitch's point, he's got a young woman. We refer to as our primary buyer persona, which is usually, I know you're not supposed to say the lady of the house, but the woman that's in charge of the home and making sure that there's no spiders and no bugs. And what he's alluding to is the number one concern we find nationwide: the kids and the pets. And everybody says they're kid and pet friendly, but are they really? And you're right. Are they spraying chemicals all over the fish tank and all over the pet bowl and all over the kids' swing set? And I have many of my clients, they'll send me a video and the guy's fogging for mosquitoes and he's blowing it all over everything. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're getting the mosquitoes, but you're killing the whole neighborhood, all the animals, all the kids, everything. So, point taken. This is a great picture. It looks like many of the other pictures that are on your site and on your social media, and it shows the care and consideration you've taken by making sure it's not just some Shutterstock image. And I'll tell you, we use a lot of those Shutterstock images only because the client just won't go get any pictures. They won't take it. They won't do it. So, folks, if you're listening out there, pictures and the image that you're portraying and the person you're portraying that image to are really, really important. Same thing here. I'll parlay this into what we're showing now is his parking lot full of blue Volkswagen Beetles with antennas on them and happy, smiling people. It's obviously cold and they've got mittens on and drinking coffee. But tell us a little bit about this. And then what are you going to do now that they've discontinued the Volkswagen? I guess you're going to have to get a good mechanic, keep these things running for a while, huh?
Well, you're onto something. I actually have a full-time mechanic. I have a garage, a dual bay garage in that Hero Training Academy as well. So, and he's fixing cars all the time and flat tires and whatnot. But, the Volkswagen Beetle is, it's a marketing thing that, of course, goes with the Blue Beetle. And then I always had just kind of the dream of putting the antennas on it. So we have the antennas. And it just, when it comes to branding, when you have the power for someone to see your car one time and they remember it forever. And in that one time, they're smiling and they're kind of laughing and they love it. We pull up to people, especially children. I mean, people go nuts. I mean, they just love it so much. And, the truth is, when it comes to branding, nowadays, today is the hardest time in human history to brand something. When you're inundated with, everything on your phone and the billboards and TV and so on, it's just so difficult. And in the 1930s, it was 7 times it took to actually see a logo and a brand to remember. Now it's probably at least double that. So you have to see another company 15 times before you actually remember it to put it into Google. So it's been a superpower for us in regards to our branding here in Kansas City. So
no, you're 100% right. It works. I can tell you, my niece that's right out there in Overland Park, as soon as I had mentioned that I'd even talked to you, she knew exactly what I was talking about. Her mother and father that visited us, which is my sister-in-law and her husband, They knew what I was talking about. So it's really important. And let me tell you, I'll take it even a step further. What people don't understand, if you can get them to go do a Google search for Blue Beetle Pest Control, and you're doing a really good job with your optimization and your pages, that's all they're going to see. So you're going to pop up with your maps listing, you're going to pop up with all your organic listings and your reviews. And that is so preferable to pest control near me, where now they're going to see you and whoever else we're dealing with and competing with. So, yeah, having a brand that's easy to remember and someone can just go, now, what was the blue? What was that? And go find it. Yeah, it's a tremendous advantage in any given market. And just trying to, and see, here's the the problem. So I deal with a lot of pest control owners that were technicians that are kind of alpha male, kind of tough guy, big dudes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they all want to wrap their truck, but they want to make it like a show truck, like it's for, they're going to take it to SEMA here in Vegas and show it off, and it's cool and it's a, but it doesn't leave any memorable impact on this is a local, in this case, pest control company. Yeah, it's cool and all that. And sometimes you can't even figure out what it is when they get these cool wraps done. And then they'll have different ones. You can see where each time they wrap a truck, they get a different bright idea and it doesn't look like the last truck. So, yeah, again, and guys, if you want to see what we're talking about, you can just go Blue Beetle Pest Control in Google search and then go images, and all the images and all this fun stuff is there. And I would challenge you, go take a look at what Mitch is doing here and then do the same thing with your own pest control company and go to images and see what you see. Is it even close? I guarantee you, for most of you, the answer is no. And that's why we're talking to Mitch today. And then that takes us just a step further. And what I'm showing here is Mitch's his Facebook account, the home or the profile page. He's got a Twitter account, and then he's got an Instagram account. And the thing I'm showing here, and I'll turn it over to you, Mitch, is the consistency, the brand, the look, the feel. It all kind of feels the same. It's not all different. It's not all done by a 12-year-old that had an access to Canva. It looks like somebody really kind of thought it through. Even the Blue Beetle, and I know enough about graphic design, having come from the print world, that Blue Beetle on that Facebook, somebody had Photoshop skills and went in there and highlighted that and really did a good job with it. Even the tint on the windows were the detail there. These are little things that most people don't notice and don't deal with, but you've done a great job here. Let me get rid of this branding thing so you can see it better. Okay, so anyway, as we sort of start to wind down here, talk to me a little bit about your social media branding, whether or not you're seeing the kind of engagement you want, whether or not you're getting any real results that you would consider to be leads coming from these efforts.
So that's a great question. I think social media is a must. Instagram, Facebook especially, not so much probably TikTok yet for what we do. In regards to followers, the truth is, and I'm not trying to be negative, but I've found that your average person isn't too excited about following a pest control company. So to gather tons and tons of followers has been tough. I think humor might help, just to kind of add some another reason to follow us. But if you can kind of figure that equation out. Now, when it does come to social media, I'd love to give a tip. We spend a lot of money on recruiting technicians on social media. So we do a Instagram and Facebook ad. We spend thousands of dollars every month, and our technicians are the ones scrolling on their phones, watching Instagram, and we'll market to the areas that traditionally that they live. And we've had luck with that, with the landing page, learn more about the job and so on. So in regards to getting tons of business from it, I wouldn't say that. We do a constant Facebook ad. It's an ancillary, so it's not the end all be all.
Yeah, and I think that with social media in general, again, getting back to that corporate thing where you go build something, then you take advantage of your own marketplace, which is why I was so discouraged in my day. But with Facebook, just use Facebook for example now. No matter what you do, they're not going to let your stuff show up on those timelines unless you pay money for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then to take that to the next level and to be able to create a message that actually gets some engagement so people look at it, talk about it, um, share it, etc. It's tough, um, especially in pest control because what you'll typically see, and we even get caught up in a lot of this because our clients want it, but all you're doing is showing pictures of bugs and spiders and oh my god,
No.
and there's so much of that you wonder on your Facebook page. So I really want to look at an ad for spiders at this point. Yeah, I mean you're really it's like you say, right? You're shooting in the dark. You kind of know what you're doing, but nobody else can see it or sense it. So
Well, real quick, you'll notice some. I have a face. You'll see there on your screen at the bottom to the right. Instead of the scary picture of the brown recluse that freaks out the homemaker when she's scrolling her phone and she wants to scroll past your ad real fast, I have a super cute little puppy on there
right.
that is flopping around in my arms and licking my face, and it's information on how to keep mice out of your house, and sorry, how to keep it out of your kitchen. And the homemaker stops and goes, "Well, that's super cute, and I don't want that. Let's watch this video." So that ad's been pretty good. Um, so FYI, few tips. I
No,
would.
you're absolutely right. Do you guys use much video, Mitch?
Oh, I love video, tons of video. I had a full time. I've had a full time videographer for 3 years, and he works for Blue Beetle, wears Blue Beetle logos, and does nothing but videos for us, and that includes for our training manuals as well, our playbooks as well. Like how, because people learn all different ways. Some people learn by reading, some people learn by video or visual, and video teaching them. Um, so yeah, I love video. It's a must in our today's age.
Yeah, it's again, that's one of those things. It's hard to get people to understand that. And I get it. Not too long ago, video was almost prohibitive. It was so expensive to just do a 90-second video shoot. But nowadays, you can get these little gimbals and get an iPhone, and you can literally create some really good video. And
Mm-hmm.
even if you're just doing B-roll, we can take it and edit it together and create some cool stuff just by at least getting some homebrewed um, on video. Well, let me take a look here. I'm looking down at my list. I want to make sure we've really.
I got some nuggets on recruiting if you want to hear any of those.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what I'd really love to hear
Okay.
on that because that since COVID has become a gigantic part of our business, I would say almost every client we have, we're now doing the same thing you're talking about, where we create a landing page for technicians, create an ad campaign on various things that goes out, and then you get into do you want only licensed local technicians that are maybe disgruntled working for somebody else, or would you rather bring in um, new, young, hungry, as you said, fairly clean cut, articulate young people that you want to train yourself? And is it worth it? Do they stick around? So why don't you touch on that? But before you do, I do want you also, as we leave the social media talk, are you finding next door to be valuable there in your area? Have you even touched on it yet? So go ahead.
I haven't gone down the next door road. So to be honest, um, in regards to marketing advertising, is pick three, maybe four, and put all your resources into it.
Right.
So I just haven't gone down the next door road. So I'm not a good. I couldn't answer you. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. And then your technician
Yes.
program.
So in regards to hiring, as we all know, it's tough to be super picky. I would love to have fresh, raw, just happy, hungry, hardworking technicians that we could put into our system and pop out Blue Beetle disciples. and we do that a lot. And they do exactly what we ask. But there are occasions where experienced pest control people will come across, and we will hire them. And I'm not saying, I mean, we all know they come with bad habits, and they come with sometimes not so humble. They kind of know how to, do things a different way, and that's how it, so on. So they come with some problems sometimes. But if they're good character and hardworking and they're happy, we'll kind of work with all that, because it is tough to find, those technicians. So you just have to be cognitive of it kind of lay down the law, and it's like, this is how we do it here. I know it's a little bit different, but so on. So.
And then do you find that when you train them up and take them through the process of getting their license and things like that, is it worth it? Do they stay a while?
I would say barely a yes. If it was, I would say 60% of the time, I think it's worth it. But you'll have problems, but in general, it's worth it.
Well, I guess in a certain way, especially in your case, if you're trying to build quote unquote disciples, which I firmly believe in, it may take a while, maybe hit and miss, but what are the alternatives? And what I see many of my pest control partners doing is they get stuck in I just need a body. I think in terms of the things we're talking about and putting them out into the workplace, I don't know if anything could be worse than that. Maybe nobody is better than the wrong body. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll see other pest control providers, and God bless them. I was there. I started with humble beginnings, one-man show out of my house many years ago, and they'll hire, and I'd made the mistake myself. They'll hire the first person who walks through the door, throw a T-shirt on him, some blue jeans, and no training, send him out because he's so desperate and he's overwhelmed, and they'll walk into their client's home or their leasing office with a cigarette lit, cussing, and going and with an attitude, So I've been there. It's a mistake, but
I agree with you, and I think that the point to be made there is you're better off. I think this is just Casey talking now. I think you're better off to invest and create the kinds of people you want, as opposed to trying to find them out there, because generally they're not even there. In our own company, it's the same thing. That's why I've got a couple members of my own family here, is we try to do the same thing. We don't want to be just another marketing agency that's selling software. And when you call in for a problem, all we do, we send you a link to a knowledge base article, or we don't even know the answer and you can't talk to anybody. And so what we have found, though, and you hear me in the intro, I make fun of millennials, is there's a lot of good old fashioned hard workmanship that you don't find any longer. I mean, you have to train it into them that, you know what, we don't want to do it the easy way. We want to do it the hard way, but the way that matters the most to the clients, it's going to keep our client around for a long time. And I talk about this a lot. You talk about, the average pest control client might be worth $600 a year. But if you keep that client for 10 years, multiply that and see what your average customer client is worth at that point. But to keep them for 10 years, you have to do business the right way. And that's the same thing we're trying to do. For us, for example, when we bring we call it onboarding a client, we'll generally go in the tank for probably 3 months, because there's just a lot of labor things that have to get done that maybe the client doesn't even understand. But what we're doing is we're trying to put our own investment of time into that client so that we have them for 5, 10, 20 years. And to do that, we know what we have to accomplish. And we're looking for a long-term solution, not a short-term. And I think with employees and with technicians in particular and front office staff, it can be a problem. I'm going to tell you, we use CallRail as our call tracking mechanism for all of our clients. And the number one thing that's always a problem is when you take on a client and they haven't been tracking their calls, and you track them and record them, and then you have to get on a very difficult call with them and say, look, I don't know who trains Sally or John there, but they're terrible.
Mhm.
They're running off more business than they're actually capturing. And to bring that to their attention and see if they're willing to handle it and do something is oftentimes a very defining moment in our initial relationship with a client. So I think kind of maybe I'm overdoing it, but I think what we're talking about here is so important to the long term success of everything you do up to that point. So all the Blue Beetles and the blue real estate and the training and everything, it's where it pays off is in that interaction with the client, the customer, the way you act. Can you sell it? Do you know what you're selling? And do you have a good, just a good attitude? But so often, and I say this all the time, you can feel a frown through the phone.
Mhm.
Someone picks up that phone immediately if they've got an attitude and they don't really want to help you and they're not exactly happy you called, you can sense that in a heartbeat. You know what I mean?
Well, you're so right. I do this. I do a training within my company with the people that answer our phones, and I make the joke. It's like you ever call a plumber out of Craigslist, and it's first of all they just go hello, and you go,
Yeah.
who's is this the plumbing company? Yeah, Joe's Plumbing.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah.
And it's like you want to be completely opposite of that. And we do like a little funny saying in the beginning, and I tell everyone to smile on the phone and show empathy to that client, and build some rapport with the client, and how you want to do business with people you like and who cares about you and has empathy. Look, I know you've heard about ants 10,000 times today, all the phone calls. It doesn't matter. They'll answer a nightmare to that client on that phone in that pantry. So have empathy for it every time, and you're going to make a sale. So they'll pay. We're probably the most expensive pest control company in our market, but people pay it and they love it because we have empathy and we show up and quickly and so on. So
No, I'll tell you just real quick. So once upon a time, I worked with a company called Clark Pest Control. They're out of Lodi, California. And then Clark Pest Control ultimately became the largest family owned pest control company in the nation. They just recently, I think they sold out for a $500 million or
wow.
more to either to Rollins or Rentokil. But all they did, so to drive that home, then we'll finish up. I'll give it back to you. All they did was back in the day in the yellow pages, there started to become a problem with with criminals and bad people showing up at the doorstep. Mainly, it's going to be a mother at home with the kids most of the time. And so you had these criminals showing up, and some bad things were happening up to and including assault. And it became a real industry problem. So Clark Pest Control back in those days and was ahead of the curve, put together a program they called their We Need You. They took all these pictures, they changed their outfits, they went almost Mr. Green jeans to effectively change that look and feel that they had in the marketplace specifically for that. They were able to really kill it. And they were the most expensive by quite a bit. And what the learning lesson was at the end of the day, with the exception of the competitive shopper, they're generally not shopping price. Price is a factor, but if the price is in there, they're not going to care. They're looking for a solution to a problem, and they're looking for a good company, and they're looking for, in this case, the right technician, a decent looking person that's clean cut, that's articulate, etc. So those kinds of things are so very, very important. And if you're not careful, what ends up happening is you have to replenish your marketing budget and your monies that you spend every year because you're continually replacing the clients you got last year because you can't retain any of the ones you have because you're not doing a good job. So anyway, I'll get off my rant, but that's sort of what I think about it. But as we wind down here, we went a little bit longer than I thought, Mitch, and I'm sorry. I very much appreciate your time. Why don't you take a few minutes, give us your final thoughts, tell us a little bit more. This is your opportunity to say whatever you want about you, your company, what you're doing. I've already said what I think about what you're doing, and I didn't even know you before this podcast episode we're doing. So go ahead, and then we'll wind down, finish up, and I will thank you very much for taking your time to share with our podcast audience and pest control people in general.
You got it. Thanks for having me on today. And again, if anyone has any questions, email is mitchs@bluebeetlepest.com, mitchs@bluebeetlepest.com. And come visit me here in Kansas City. We'll have barbecue, but I want you to teach me something as well. I can learn from anybody. And also, if you're in my market, in Kansas City market, or Lawrence, for example, or maybe even St. Louis, and you're looking to sell your business, I'd love to work with you and talk to you and make it a win-win and pay you a fair price and everything else. So again, Mitch S@bluebeetlepest.com. Thanks so much, Casey.
Okay, Mitch. And I want to thank you and say to our audience, I hope that you found this as valuable as we did. We'll continue this kind of thing based on your response. And Mitch, I'll be sending over to you both the audio and video of this for you to do as you please. And once again, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, George.
You've been listening to the Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast. If you own a pest control company anywhere in the country, by using our services, we will help you grow and prosper. Casey has 30 years in marketing and advertising under his belt. He managed and oversaw a sales force of 4,000 inside and outside sales reps, tasked to work with every pest control owner in the USA. Thanks for listening to the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Rhino Digital Media. Let us take your digital marketing to the next level. See you next time on the Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast.